My name is Tariq, and I'm the eldest son of a woman whose love is fiercer than the desert sun. In a city where skyscrapers like the Burj Al Arab pierce the heavens, my mother raised me and my younger sibling, Sammy, to shine unapologetically. We're both gay, and Amira isn't just our mother. She's our shield, our compass, our rebellion against a world that doesn't always see us. But that night, a single moment in our Albershaw home cracked open my heart, exposing a love I'd locked away and a fear I couldn't outrun. What she did next shocked me to my core, and it's a story that will grip you, twist your emotions, and leave you desperate to know how it ends. Our home was a haven, tucked amidst Dubai's palm-lined streets, with a scent of Amira's saffron rice wafted through the air and Sammy's late-night piano melodies danced in the shadows. I was 20, a literature student at the American University in Dubai, navigating my identity as a gay man in a place where tradition and progress often collided. Sammy, 18, was openly gay, their vibrant spirit a kaleidoscope of courage, expressed through poetry and activism. Amira, a widowed seamstress who ran a boutique in the Dubai Mall, was our anchor. She'd raised us alone since our father's death when I was 6, her strength a quiet fire that burned through every hardship. But that night, the air felt heavy, charged with an unspoken weight. I'd been guarding a secret. Not my sexuality, which Amira had embraced since I came out at 15, but a deeper, rawer truth. I was in love with Omar, my study partner, whose gentle smile and quiet wisdom had unraveled me. Yet, I couldn't tell Amira, not because I doubted her acceptance, but because I feared the scrutiny it might bring in our tight-knit community. As I sat in my room, scribbling Omar's name in the margins of my notebook under the flicker of a sandalwood-scented candle, a soft knock broke my reverie. Amira stood in the doorway, her eyes like twin moons, seeing through my carefully constructed walls. "Tariq, you're hiding something," she said, her voice a blend of warmth and resolve. "Your heart's been too quiet." My chest tightened. "It's nothing, Amy," I whispered, the Urdu word for mother a lifeline. But her gaze held me captive, unwavering. She stepped inside, her abaya brushing the floor, and sat on my bed, her hands folded like a prayer. "You've always been my poet, Tariq," she said, her smile tinged with knowing. "But poets don't hide their verses from their mother." Before I could respond, Sammy burst in, their earrings glinting under the light. "Tariq's got a boyfriend," they teased, unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. Amira's laugh was a melody, but her eyes stayed on me, waiting for the truth. Then came the jolt that set the night ablaze. My phone vibrated, Omar's name glowing on the screen. A message inviting me to a secret open mic night in Jumeirah, where he planned to read a poem he'd written for someone special. My heart raced. Was it for me? The thought was intoxicating, but terrifying. Dubai's nightlife was vibrant, but such events could draw whispers in our community. "You should go," Amira said, her voice cutting through my hesitation. "And take Sammy. Love deserves to be heard, Betta." Her words were a spark, igniting a fire of courage. But as I grabbed my jacket, a shadow of doubt crept in. What if Omar's poem wasn't for me? What if this night exposed more than I was ready to face? The stakes felt higher now. I wasn't just stepping into a poetry reading. I was stepping toward a truth that could redefine my world. Amira's unwavering belief in me was both a comfort and a challenge. As Sammy and I headed out into the neon-lit Dubai night, the city's pulse seemed to echo my own. Wild, uncertain, alive with possibility. But a nagging fear whispered, what if this was the night everything fell apart? The Dubai night was a living thing, its neon veins pulsing through Jumeirah's bustling streets, where the air carried the scent of oud and the hum of a city that never slept. As Sammy and I stepped into the open mic venue, a cozy cafe tucked beneath the shadow of the Jumeirah Mosque, my heart thundered like a desert storm. Omar's message burned in my mind. A poem, a stage, a secret he'd unveil tonight. Was I the muse behind his words? Or was I chasing a mirage? With Amira's encouragement echoing in my ears, Love deserves to be heard. I felt both invincible and terrified. But as the spotlight found Omar, a new twist unraveled, threatening to expose my heart to a room full of strangers and forcing me to confront a truth I wasn't ready to face. The cafe was a mosaic of faces, students, artists, expats, sipping chai and whispering over the clink of glasses. Fairy lights draped the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the small stage where a microphone stood waiting. Sammy, ever the spark, nudged me toward a table near the front. "Relax, Tarek." They grinned, their eyes glinting with mischief. "You're acting like Omar's about to propose." I shot them a glare, my cheeks warming. "Shut up, Sammy. It's just a poem." But my voice betrayed me, trembling with anticipation. What if it wasn't just a poem? What if it was everything? Omar stepped onto the stage, his presence quiet but magnetic. His dark curls caught the light, and his hands fidgeted with a folded piece of paper, his poem. My breath hitched. He scanned the crowd, and when his eyes found mine, a smile flickered across his face, soft and private. "This is for someone who sees the world in verses," he said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. The room faded, and it was just us, tethered by an invisible thread. His words wove a tapestry of longing, deserts blooming under starlight, hearts whispering truths too heavy to speak. Each line felt like a confession, a mirror to the feelings I'd buried for months. My pulse raced. Was this real? But then the first jolt hit. A familiar face emerged from the crowd. Hassan, a mutual friend from university, his expression a mix of curiosity and suspicion. He'd been vocal about his conservative views, and his presence sent a chill down my spine. Had he seen Omar's glance at me? Would he piece it together? Sammy noticed my tension and squeezed my hand under the table. "Ignore him," they whispered. "Focus on Omar." I nodded, but the fear lingered, a shadow over the joy blooming in my chest. Omar's poem ended, and the crowd erupted in applause. He stepped off the stage, making his way toward us, but before he reached our table, Hassan intercepted him, clapping him on the back. "Great stuff, man," Hassan said loudly, his eyes darting to me. "Who's the lucky one?" Omar's smile faltered, and my stomach twisted. Was this the moment our secret unraveled? I wanted to run, to hide from the weight of Hassan's gaze, but Sammy's grip anchored me. "Stay," they murmured. "You're stronger than this." Omar deflected Hassan's question with a laugh, joining us at the table. "You came," he said to me, his voice soft, almost reverent. I nodded, unable to find words. Up close, his eyes held a warmth that made my fears feel smaller, but Hassan's presence loomed like a storm cloud. As the night wore on, Omar and I stole moments of conversation about poetry, dreams, the way Dubai's lights mirrored the stars. Each word felt like a step closer to something real, but the risk of exposure gnawed at me. What if Hassan spread rumors? What if our community turned against us? Then came the second twist. As the cafe began to empty, Omar leaned in, his voice barely audible. "Meet me at the rooftop garden after this. I need to tell you something." My heart leapt, but fear clawed at me. A rooftop meeting in the dead of night? It was reckless, dangerous even, in a city where whispers could become scandals. But Amira's words rang in my mind. Love deserves to be heard. Could I be brave enough to listen? As Sammy and I left the cafe, the Dubai night seemed to hum with possibility, but Hassan's lingering glance followed us. The stakes were higher now. This wasn't just about Omar's poem or my feelings. It was about choosing to stand in my truth, no matter the cost. With Sammy by my side, I headed toward the rooftop, my heart a battleground of hope and dread. What would Omar say, and would I have the courage to face it? The Dubai skyline glittered like a crown of stars. But as I climbed the stairs to the rooftop garden above the Jumeirah Cafe, my heart pounded with a fear that threatened to drown out the city's pulse. Omar's words, "I need to tell you something," echoed in my mind, each syllable a spark igniting both hope and dread. Was this the moment I'd confess my love, or would it unravel into a scandal that could shatter our lives? with Sammy trailing behind, their teasing grin replaced by a wary glance. I felt the weight of Amira's belief in me. Love deserves to be heard. But as I stepped into the moonlit garden, a shocking twist turned my world upside down, forcing me to face a truth that could either free me or break me. The night was about to explode, and I wasn't ready for the fallout. The rooftop was a hidden oasis, with jasmine vines curling around fairy lights and the distant call to prayer weaving through the air. The Burj Khalifa loomed in the distance, a silent witness to the storm brewing in my chest. Omar stood by a wrought iron railing, his silhouette framed against the city's glow, his hands shoved into his pockets. His eyes found mine, and for a moment, the world stilled, a fragile bubble of possibility. "You made it," he said, his voice low, almost trembling. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. Sammy lingered near the stairs, giving us space but watching like a hawk, their protective streak a quiet comfort. "I love your poem," I managed, stepping closer. Omar's smile was tentative, but his gaze held a fire that made my pulse race. "It was for you, Tariq," he said, and my heart leapt. The words I'd dreamed of hearing landed like a gift, but before I could respond, a sharp voice sliced through the night. "What's this about a poem?" Hassan emerged from the shadows, his phone in hand, a smirk curling his lips. My blood ran cold. Had he followed us? His presence was a dagger, threatening to pierce the fragile moment we'd carved out. Sammy stepped forward, their voice sharp. "What are you doing here, Hassan?" But he ignored them, his eyes locked on Omar. "Didn't think you were the type to sneak around, Omar," he said, his tone laced with menace. "Where are you, Tariq? What's going on up here?" The accusation hung heavy, and I felt the walls of Dubai's expectations closing in. Homosexuality, though not openly discussed, carried risks in our community. Whispers, ostracism, or worse. I wanted to run, but Omar's hand brushed mine, a fleeting touch that anchored me. "Nothing's going on," Omar said coolly, but his jaw tightened, betraying his fear. The tension snapped like a taut wire when Hassan raised his phone, the camera light flashing. "Let's see what people think about this," he sneered, snapping a photo. My heart stopped. A single image could spark rumors, ruin reputations, and reach our families. Sammy lunged forward, trying to grab the phone, but Hassan dodged, laughing. "You're making this too easy," he taunted. Panic surged through me, but Amira's voice echoed in my mind, urging me to stand tall. I couldn't let fear win. Not now. Not when Omar's poem had laid his heart bare. "Stop," I said, my voice shaking but firm. Hassan paused, surprised by my defiance. "You don't get to control us," I continued, stepping between him and Omar. "Whatever you think you saw, it's none of your business." My words were a gamble, fueled by a courage I didn't know I had. Sammy's eyes widened, pride flickering in their gaze, but Hassan's smirk didn't falter. "We'll see about that," he said, pocketing his phone and retreating down the stairs. The threat lingered, a storm cloud ready to burst. Omar turned to me, his expression a mix of awe and worry. "Tariq, you didn't have to do that," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'm glad you did." I exhaled, the adrenaline still coursing through me. "I couldn't let him ruin this," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not when you wrote that poem for me." Omar's smile returned, softer now, and he took my hand, his touch a lifeline. "There's more I need to say," he said, "but not here. Meet me tomorrow at the Dubai Creek. We need to talk, really talk." As Sammy and I left the rooftop, the city's lights blurred through my tears. Hassan's photo was a ticking bomb, and Omar's promise of tomorrow felt like a fragile hope. But Amira's love, unwavering and fierce, burned in my chest, giving me strength. This wasn't just about me and Omar. It was about fighting for the right to love, to be seen, to exist. The night had turned dangerous, but it had also awakened something in me. A resolve to face whatever came next, no matter how high the stakes. The Dubai Creek shimmered under the midday sun, its waters a mirror for the city's dreams and secrets. But as I stood on its banks, my heart was a battlefield. Omar's promise to meet here after last night's rooftop clash felt like a lifeline, fragile yet pulsing with hope. Yet, Hassan's photo of Omar and me, hands clasped under the Jumeirah moonlight, loomed like a guillotine, threatening to sever everything I held dear. Amira's words, "Love deserves to be heard," burned in my chest, but could love survive the weight of exposure in a city where whispers could ignite wildfires? As I waited for Omar, a shocking betrayal surfaced, testing my trust and forcing me to decide. Would I fight for this love, or let fear drown it? The creek's gentle flow hit a storm, and what happened next would shake me to my core. The morning had been a blur. After the rooftop, I'd barely slept, haunted by Hassan's smirk and the flash of his phone. Sammy had stayed up with me, their fierce optimism a balm against my spiraling thoughts. "We'll handle Hassan," they'd said, but their voice wavered, betraying their own fear. At breakfast, Amira noticed my silence, her eyes searching mine over a plate of paratha. "Tariq, whatever's weighing you down, let it out," she urged, her hand warm on mine. I wanted to confess about Omar, about the photo, but the words stuck. How could I burden her with this? Yet, her unwavering strength gave me the courage to face the creek and Omar. The creek was alive with dhows gliding past, their sails catching the breeze, and tourists snapping photos of the historic waterfront. I stood near a spiced souk, the air thick with cumin and saffron, my nerves fraying with each passing minute. Omar was late, and doubt crept in. Had he changed his mind? Had Hassan's threat reached him? My phone buzzed. A message from Sammy. "Hassan's been asking around about you and Omar. Be careful." My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a photo. It was a campaign, spreading like wildfire through our community. Then I saw him. Omar jogged toward me, his face tense, a backpack slung over one shoulder. "Tariq, I'm sorry I'm late," he said, breathless. "Hassan called me this morning. He's got the photo, and he's threatening to post it unless I back off." His words hit like a punch. Back off? From us? I searched his eyes, fear and anger warring inside me. "What did you tell him?" I asked, my voice barely steady. Omar's jaw tightened. "I told him to go to hell. But Tariq, this is serious. If that photo gets out, he didn't need to finish. In Dubai, where community ties were tight, a rumor could ruin reputations, strain family bonds, or worse." My mind raced to Amira, to the life she'd built for us. Could I risk dragging her into this? But Omar's hand found mine, his touch a quiet rebellion. "I meant what I said last night," he whispered. "That poem was for you. I'm not running from this." His courage was a spark, but before I could respond, a new shock hit. A shout cut through the air. "Tariq!" I turned to see Layla, my friend from university, storming toward us, her hijab fluttering in the breeze. Her eyes blazed with betrayal. "Is it true?" she demanded, stopping inches from me. "Hassan's saying you and Omar are together." He showed me the photo. My heart plummeted. Layla, who'd been a confidant, looked at me like a stranger. Omar stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. "Layla, it's not what you think. That photo's out of context." But her gaze didn't soften. "You lied to me, Tariq," she said, her voice breaking. "I thought we were friends." The accusation stung, but worse was the realization that Hassan's reach was spreading. How many others had he told? I felt the creek's waters closing over my head, drowning me in panic. "Layla, please," I said, my voice cracking. I didn't lie. I just wasn't ready to share this. She shook her head, tears glistening. "I need time," she muttered, turning away. As she vanished into the crowd, I felt a piece of my world crumble. Omar's hand tightened around mine. "We can't let this stop us," he said, his voice fierce. But before I could reply, another blow landed. My phone vibrated with a notification. A group chat from our university friends, buzzing with speculation. Someone had leaked the photo. Comments ranged from curious to cruel, and my name was everywhere. My breath hitched. This wasn't just about Layla or Hassan anymore. It was a public unraveling. Omar's face paled as he checked his own phone, seeing the same messages. "Tariq, we need to talk to Amira," he said urgently. "If this reaches her before we do, The thought of Amira hearing rumors before I could explain was unbearable. She'd always been my rock, but would this be too much? As we hurried toward a taxi, the creek's beauty faded, replaced by a rising tide of fear. But beneath it, a flicker of resolve grew. Amira had taught me to stand tall, and I wouldn't let Hassan's betrayal define us. The fight for our love had just begun, and the next move would change everything. The taxi sped through Dubai's neon-lit streets, the city's glamour a stark contrast to the chaos churning inside me. Omar sat beside me, his hand gripping mine as if anchoring us against the storm unleashed by Hassan's leaked photo. The group chat's cruel comments, some mocking, others accusing, burned in my mind, each one a dagger threatening to tear apart the life Amira had built for us. Her words, "Love deserves to be heard," echoed like a beacon, but as we neared our Albershah home, a new betrayal struck, more devastating than I could have imagined. The truth I'd hidden from Amira was about to collide with a reality I wasn't prepared to face, and what happened next would test the very core of our family's love. The taxi's hum couldn't drown out my racing thoughts. Omar's silence was heavy, his jaw set as he scrolled through the group chat, his face paling with each new message. "They're saying we're a disgrace," he muttered, his voice thick with anger. "Hassan's framing it like we're sneaking around." My stomach twisted. In Dubai, where community ties could be both a shield and a cage, rumors like this could ripple outward, reaching neighbors, relatives, even Amir's customers. I pictured her textile shop in the Dubai Mall, her pride in her work, and felt a pang of guilt. How my feelings for Omar put everything at risk. As we pulled into our street, the sight of our home, its white walls glowing under the streetlights, should have been comforting. But a crowd had gathered outside, their murmurs carrying on the night air. My heart stopped. Neighbors, some familiar, some not, stood in clusters, their faces a mix of curiosity and judgment. Sammy was there, their arms crossed, trying to deflect questions. "What's going on?" I whispered, stepping out of the taxi. Sammy's eyes met mine, wide with panic. Hassan posted the photo online, they said, their voice low. "It's gone viral. Ami's inside, she knows." The ground seemed to shift beneath me. Amira knew, not from me, but from a vicious rumor. Omar's hand found my shoulder, steadying me. "We face this together," he said, his voice firm despite the fear in his eyes. But as we pushed through the crowd, their whispers stung like sand in a desert storm. "Shameful," one muttered. "What will their mother do?" another hissed. I wanted to scream, to tell them they didn't understand, but fear choked me. This was the moment I dreaded. My truth, laid bare, threatening to break the woman who'd given me everything. Inside, the house was eerily quiet, the scent of cardamom lingering from Amira's morning tea. She stood in the living room, her abaya slightly askew, her phone in hand. The screen glowed with the photo, Omar and me, hands clasped on the rooftop, our faces lit by moonlight. Her eyes, usually warm, were unreadable, and my heart sank. "Ami," I started, my voice trembling, "I was going to tell you." She raised a hand, silencing me, and the weight of her gaze was unbearable. "Is this true, Tariq?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with pain. "Are you and Omar together?" The question hung like a blade, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. Omar stepped forward, his voice soft but resolute. "Yes, Ami. It's true. I care about Tariq more than I can explain." His honesty was a lifeline, but Amira's silence was deafening. I braced for anger, for disappointment, but what came next was a twist I never saw coming. She set her phone down, her shoulders squaring. "Do you love him?" she asked, her eyes locking onto mine. The question was so direct, so raw, that it stripped away my defenses. Tears welled up as I nodded. "Yes, Ami, I love him." The words, spoken aloud for the first time, felt like a release, but also a leap into the unknown. Amira's expression softened, but before she could respond, the door burst open. Hassan stormed in, his face flushed with triumph. "You see, Amira," he said, his voice dripping with venom, "they're bringing shame to your family. You need to stop this. The room crackled with tension. Sammy lunged toward Hassan, but Amira raised a hand, her presence commanding. Enough, she said, her voice like steel. She turned to Hassan, her eyes blazing. You don't get to decide what my family is. My children are my pride, and their love is not your judgment to cast. Her words hit like a thunderbolt, and I felt a surge of awe. But Hassan wasn't done. You'll regret this, he spat, pulling out his phone. I've got more. Messages, screenshots. This isn't over. My heart raced. Messages? Had he hacked our phones? The thought was paralyzing, but Amira's resolve didn't waver. Leave my home, she said, her voice low but unyielding. Hassan hesitated, then stormed out, his threat lingering like a shadow. As the door slammed, Amira turned to me, her eyes glistening. Tariq, why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice breaking. The guilt was crushing. I was scared, I admitted, tears spilling. I didn't want to hurt you. She pulled me into her arms, her embrace a fortress. You could never hurt me by being who you are, she whispered. But we need to face this together. Omar and Sammy joined us, a circle of strength in a world that felt ready to tear us apart. The photo, the rumors, Hassan's threats, they were a storm, but Amira's love was our anchor. As we sat together, planning our next move, a new resolve took root. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about fighting for the right to love, to exist, to be free. The living room in our Albershaw home, once a haven of Amira's warmth and Sammy's music, now felt like a fortress under siege. Hassan's parting threat, screenshots, messages, a promise to expose us further, hung like a storm cloud, its shadow darkening the fragile hope Amira's embrace had kindled. Her words, "You could never hurt me by being who you are," were a lifeline, but as the Dubai night deepened, a new crisis erupted, more personal and piercing than any rumor. Omar's past came knocking, and a betrayal from within our circle pushed us to the brink. This wasn't just about love anymore. It was about survival, and the battle that unfolded would redefine our family forever. After Hassan's exit, we sat in a tense circle, Amira, Sammy, Omar, and me, our voices low as we strategized. The leaked photo had already spread, but screenshots of private messages? That could be devastating. We need to know what he has, Sammy said, their eyes blazing with determination. If he's got texts, we can trace them. Amira nodded, her face resolute. We'll face this head on, she said. But, Tariq, Omar, you need to be honest with me. No more secrets. Her gaze was both a challenge and a promise, and I felt a pang of guilt for ever doubting her strength. Omar shifted uncomfortably, his hands clasped tightly. There's something you should know, he said, his voice barely audible. My heart sank. Before I met Tariq, I was involved with someone. Briefly, it ended badly. The confession hit like a shockwave. Involved? With who? He continued, his eyes fixed on the floor. It was Hassan's cousin, Kareem. He's not out. No one knows. I ended it because it wasn't real, but Kareem was angry. I think he told Hassan about us. Maybe gave him access to my old messages. The room spun. Hassan's vendetta wasn't random. It was personal, fueled by a scorned connection from Omar's past. Amira's eyes narrowed, but her voice remained steady. Does Kareem know about the photo? Omar shook his head. I don't think so, but if Hassan has my messages, he could drag Kareem into this. The stakes skyrocketed. Exposing Kareem, who wasn't out, could destroy his life in a community where such secrets carried heavy consequences. Sammy slammed their fist on the table. This is blackmail, they said. We need to stop Hassan before he posts more. But how? My mind raced, torn between protecting Omar, shielding Kareem, and preserving Amira's dignity. Then came the next blow. My phone buzzed with a call from Layla, my friend who'd confronted me at the creek. I hesitated, but Amira's nod urged me to answer. Tariq, Layla's voice was frantic. Hassan's at the university, showing people the photo and talking about you and Omar. He's saying awful things. I try to stop him, but he's planning something big tomorrow. My blood ran cold. Something big, A public shaming? A post on social media? The thought of our lives being dissected in public was unbearable. Thank you, Layla. I managed, my voice shaking. I'm sorry about earlier. She paused, then said softly, I'm on your side, Tariq. Just be careful. The call ended, but the urgency didn't. Amira stood, her presence commanding. We're not waiting for Hassan to strike, she said. Tomorrow, we go to the university. We'll confront him together. Her plan was bold, almost reckless, but her fire was infectious. Omar looked at me, his eyes filled with guilt. Tariq, I'm sorry for dragging you into this, he said. I shook my head, squeezing his hand. We're in this together, I said, echoing Amira's strength. But doubt gnawed at me. Could we outmaneuver Hassan without losing everything? As we planned, a knock at the door startled us. It was late, too late for visitors. Sammy peered through the window, their face paling. It's Kareem, they whispered. My heart raced. Kareem, the ghost from Omar's past, here? Amira opened the door, her posture unwavering. Kareem stood there, his face drawn, his hands trembling. I heard about the photo, he said, his voice hoarse. Hassan's using me to hurt you. He stole my phone, got into my old chats with Omar. I didn't know he'd go this far. The betrayal cut deep. Hassan had exploited Kareem's pain, turning it into a weapon against us. Amira's eyes softened, but her voice was firm. Kareem, you're not alone in this, she said. Come inside. We'll figure this out. Her compassion stunned me, a reminder of her boundless heart. Kareem hesitated, then stepped in, his shoulders slumping. I'm not ready to come out, he admitted, tears glistening. But I can't let Hassan ruin you because of me. His vulnerability was a mirror to my own fears, and I felt a surge of solidarity. This wasn't just our fight, it was Kareem's too. As we huddled together, the Dubai night outside seemed to hold its breath. Amira outlined a plan. We'd confront Hassan at the university, demand he delete the evidence, and appeal to our community's sense of fairness. It was risky, Hassan could escalate, and the crowd could turn against us. But Amira's resolve was unshakable. Love doesn't hide, she said, her eyes meeting mine, and neither will we. Her words were a call to arms, but as I looked at Omar, Kareem, and Sammy, I knew the battle ahead would test us all. The storm was here, and we had one chance to weather it. The American University in Dubai buzzed with morning energy, its palm-lined campus a deceptive calm against the storm brewing within me. Today, we'd confront Hassan, armed with nothing but truth and Amira's unyielding love. The leaked photo, the stolen messages, and the whispers that had spread like wildfire through our community threatened to tear us apart. But as I stood with Omar, Sammy, Kareem, and Amira, I felt a fire ignite. Her words, love doesn't hide, were our battle cry, but a final, heart-wrenching twist awaited, pushing us to the edge of despair before revealing a truth that would set us free. This was our stand, and the Dubai dawn would witness a victory we'd never forget. The university courtyard was crowded, students milling about between classes, unaware of the drama unfolding. Hassan stood near the fountain, surrounded by a small group, his phone in hand, a smirk plastered on his face. My heart pounded as we approached, the weight of 100 eyes pressing down. Amira led the way, her abaya flowing like a banner, her presence a force that silenced the murmurs. Hassan, she called, her voice clear and commanding. The crowd parted, and his smirk faltered, sensing the shift. You've spread lies about my son and Omar, Amira said, her eyes locking onto his. You've used private moments to shame them. That ends now. Her words were a thunderclap, and I felt a surge of pride. But Hassan recovered quickly, holding up his phone. I've got proof, he sneered. Messages, photos, enough to show everyone who they really are. Kareem flinched, his fear palpable. Those messages could out him, destroying his life in a community unforgiving of such truths. Omar stepped forward, his voice steady. You're not exposing us, Hassan. You're hiding behind your own pain. This isn't about us. It's about you and Kareem. The crowd gasped, and Kareem's eyes widened, his secret teetering on the edge. I grabbed Omar's arm, whispering, "What are you doing?" But he shook his head, his gaze resolute. "It's the only way," he said. The tension was electric, a spark away from explosion. Then came the twist that broke us open. Kareem stepped forward, his voice trembling but clear. "He's right," he said, facing the crowd. "I'm gay. Hassan's using my past with Omar to hurt them, because I hurt him by keeping it secret." The courtyard fell silent, the weight of Kareem's coming out rippling through the air. Hassan's face drained of color, his phone lowering. "Kareem, don't," he started, but Kareem cut him off. "I'm done hiding," he said, tears streaming. "I won't let you weaponize my truth anymore." The crowd shifted, some whispering, others nodding, a mix of shock and empathy. Amira placed a hand on Kareem's shoulder, her voice gentle. "You're brave, Beta," she said, using the Urdu word for son. "And you're not alone." Her words were a balm, but the danger wasn't over. Hassan, cornered, raised his phone again. "This changes nothing," he spat. "I'll post everything." My heart raced. Our lives hung in the balance. But then, the final miracle unfolded. Layla emerged from the crowd, her face fierce. "No, you won't," she said, holding up her own phone. "I recorded you admitting you stole Kareem's messages. Try posting, and this goes to the dean." The crowd erupted in murmurs, and Hassan's bravado crumbled. "You wouldn't," he stammered, but Layla's glare was unwavering. "Try me." The standoff was unbearable, but Hassan backed down, pocketing his phone and retreating, his power shattered. The courtyard buzzed as the crowd dispersed, some offering nods of support, others still whispering. Amira pulled us into a hug. Me, Omar, Sammy, Kareem, and even Layla. "You stood for love," she said, her voice thick with pride. "That's what matters." Tears fell as I realized we'd won, not just against Hassan, but against fear itself. Omar's hand found mine, his smile a promise of tomorrow. Kareem, though shaken, stood taller, his truth a beacon. Sammy grinned, their defiance unbroken. And Amira, our rock, our warrior, had shown us what love could do. As we left the university, the Dubai sun rose higher, casting golden light over the city. Our journey wasn't over. There'd be more whispers, more battles. But we'd faced the worst and emerged stronger. This wasn't just a love story. It was a testament to courage, to standing tall, to choosing truth over shame. To anyone watching, let our story inspire you to embrace your heart, to fight for who you are, and to never let fear silence your voice.